What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday night. This staple show is live on your Wednesday at 7:30. We're on time, kind of minute late. We've been good recently, Ryan. We've been a little bit early, so I think people will give us a little leeway. This is the Shout Buffalo Bills football podcast, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. He is my co-host, Ryan Talbot. I am Matt Parrino, and we are joined tonight by a first-timer, Ashley Holder. I was so excited. You kind of Channel 2 sports reporter, anchor over there, new in town in July. We're gonna get into all that kind of stuff, but you commented on one of our posts last week, and I was like, man, how have we not had Ashley on the show yet? So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for giving me an invite. Look, I told Ryan already. I was like, man, 2 goats. Like, I'm excited.
Well, 1 goat. I'll give Ryan
the goat.
I don't know. All right. So let's get this thing started. Before we get too much into it, we always got to take care of a little housekeeping. The Shout Football Podcast is brought to you by Tops, your neighborhood store with more. I know we have so many dedicated fans that look forward to the Tops commercials. We'll bring those to you halfway through the show, so stay with us. Ashley, you started covering the team in the Buffalo market, but the Bills as well in July. You moved up here from Carolina. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to make the move and what your impressions have been in Buffalo in your first 6-7 months.
Yeah, well, I came from CBS Sports where I was sidelining and I was doing a lot of MAC conference. So a little bit of the smaller conferences, I was there for about a year. So that was pretty cool. And then obviously the pandemic happened and there was a lot of different changes and things like that. So I saw this job and we made contact with each other and it just seemed like a great market. It seemed like obviously the Bills were on the rise. So it just was interesting and I wanted to, check it out. I didn't get to come to Buffalo, but I got to research it and see about the city and the team and just UB, just other things that I wasn't aware of. So when I'm originally from New York, so it's Long Island, it's close enough. So it just seemed like a great opportunity. And after I talked to people were awesome there. So it just seemed like a great opportunity and you can't really pass that type of stuff up.
And Buffalo's really lucky to have you. But going back to the sideline reporting, did you have any kind of is there anything that you miss, I guess, about that from what you're doing now?
Oh yeah. The first thing I miss is that when the game hits 0, I do my post game and I'm done. That's it. That's probably the most thing that I missed out of it because in local TV, you work so much longer afterwards doing stuff. But that's probably the most thing I miss. And then I also miss just being right because of the pandemic. I miss being like right in the middle of everything. Like when you're sidelining, you get to be in those huddles. You get to be right on the sideline. You're hearing what those guys are saying. It gives you a different perspective than even when you're up in the press box. So I do miss that part of the sidelining and little things of like getting to meet with the coordinators every week and the coaches and players and really get that one-on-one time. That's one thing I super miss with this pandemic and moving to Buffalo because you hear about Bills Mafia. You hear about them going on the tables. I guess it's the chairs and the tables. And I've never seen it and I don't know about it and I want to experience it. And I'm like, man, I can't get that until next year. So it's like I don't want to rush this year, but I'm super excited to actually see a real game in person with all the fans because you hear that they really have one of the best like fan markets here.
It's so great that you bring that up because in such a weird year with COVID, to start covering an NFL football team in this environment has to be so strange because first and foremost, I mean, we've talked about it in the show, part of our jobs as reporters is developing a rapport and a relationship with players. And this year, we've been having Zoom conferences and they're great and everything, but it's just a completely different dynamic. And then to not have that attachment to the game experience as well. I mean, we're covering the road games from our living rooms and in our basements, and it's just a completely different dynamic. But for you, starting from scratch here and then add those elements in, it's got to be kind of frustrating at times.
Oh, for sure. And that's my biggest thing as being a reporter. I love the relationships. I love building relationships with everybody that I'm around. So the fact that you don't get the chance to do that, or even can even walk around the field and see all the position groups and what everybody's doing is super hard. A lot of people I work with, I don't think I will even know everybody until sometime next year. I mean, there's people I'm emailing them, I'm texting them. I have no idea who they are, but I'm like, well, one day I guess we'll meet. So it's very interesting, but it's easier than I thought it would be, if that makes sense. Like, it's still hard, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. It's the constant, like with the COVID numbers going up and down, if you can go in studio or if we have to broadcast from home and stuff like that, it's the back and forth that probably gets the most frustrating. Because I'm a person that loves to be in studio. Like, I live for my 6-pack behind the wall and, like, just being able to move and do different things. So like when I'm at home, it's a way different. And it's hard for me to work from home. Like, I'm a TV buff. Like, I'm watching TV, movies, everything. I cannot concentrate at home. Like,
what's your favorite? What? Give me a couple TV recommendations. We just we just finished The Outsider on HBO. It was all right. It kind of nosedived near the end.
I heard The Undoing was good too on HBO.
That was good too.
That was good.
That was good too, but I don't know. Like, both of them, I think part of the problem for me on HBO is Game of Thrones was this enthralling epic that now everything that I watch, I'm just kind of like, and there was a season of True Detective that was so unbelievably amazing on HBO that when things don't live up to the hype, it kind of bums me out. But what are you watching right now? What's
I never got into Game of Thrones, I will say that. But okay, so it depends what I'm feeling like. First of all, I love reality TV. So I'm watching my Atlanta Housewives, Potomac, all that. But then if I want to cry, I'm watching Grey's Anatomy, This Is Us. You know what I mean? It depends how I'm feeling that day. I love true detective shows, like you said. I still love First 48. Like, I really feel like if I wasn't a reporter, I would be a lawyer. But I love Law and Order, SVU. But I don't know if I'd be an actor or if I wanted to be like a detective. I can't figure out which one it is. But I mean, I live for TV. Like, I'm on Netflix and I love The Office. I've watched it 10 times, but I can continuously watch it. Like, I just watched, oh my gosh, Ryan, I watched the episode where they showed after Super Bowl when Dwight had started the fire. Like,
yes.
I think that's the most classic episode I've ever seen. I mean, it's hilarious. Like, I watched 4 episodes yesterday. It was crazy. And I watch them like I've never seen them before.
Right there with you. I binge it all the time. My kids are sick of it. My wife's sick of it. It's like, you're watching that again? Yeah, it's moving off Netflix soon. I have to get it all in as much as possible.
Yeah, I was mad they took Dave Chappelle off so quick because I didn't even get to like my favorite episodes of Dave Chappelle. So like, I don't know, I'm watching everything. Like, I can watch from one side of the spectrum all the way to the other. But I live for TV. Like, that's pretty much what I know. That sounds bad, but that's pretty much.
No, I'm there with you. Yeah, when COVID's over, we'll all go to Marcel's place and make him watch The Office and make him just accept the amazingness that is The Office. Dude, there's not a lot of things I don't like about that guy. He's like one of my favorite people. And bro, get on it. All right.
We gotta
marathon this thing. We'll figure it out. That's another topic for another day. All right. Let's get to the Bills a little bit here. Huge week for Josh Allen. I just put up a story at the site. Go check it out. Syracuse.com, New York Upstate. The title being, put Josh Allen in your MVP conversation or stay out of it. Because there's this narrative is still kind of, perpetuating itself across the internet. There was a Mel Kiper bit today where he just got up on that soapbox and he brought all his receipts with him to ESPN morning show. And he just started going off about, like, I've been on the Josh Allen train since back before at Wyoming, and guys were kind of like laughing at him. And I think that's kind of what inspired the piece, is that I think there's still people that look at Josh Allen with these, glasses that have all these foggy pieces from all of these years of slights that he's taken and jabs that he's taken, and that kind of sticks. So you came here in July and you probably had some type of pre-established notion of who Josh Allen was. And then you've seen what you've seen up close the last couple months. So take me through that. Where were you when you got here and where are you now on Josh Allen?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because when I got here, I knew who Josh Allen was, but I didn't pay that much attention to Josh Allen, honestly. And but I was kind of one of those people that probably didn't watch the Bills or pay attention to them as much, unless you were kind of maybe around the area or covering them. Obviously, because I came from Carolina where I was covering the Panthers, and we obviously did not really play them at all besides joint practices we're talking about. So I was impressed. I already knew he was a good quarterback, but I think over these last couple of games, he's just truly impressed me. I do believe what you're saying. I do think he's had an MVP type season, and he should be in the talks. But to me, he just gets better and better each game. Like his decision making, he has some incredible throws that we've been able to see, against the 49ers. What he had drives of like 77, 74, 75 yards, and he only threw 8 incompletions. You get what I'm saying? Out of 40 attempts. So that's huge, and didn't turn the ball over. He looks like a superstar in every aspect to me that when you're watching him, you know what I mean? And the some turnovers and things like that they're going to happen. Like, you know what I mean? No one is perfect, but I think he's just such a great face of this franchise. And honestly, he does remind me personally a little bit of a Cam Newton, because the way he's able to run and the way he moves on his feet and the way that he slides, I don't know why, but I see Cam sometimes. And when I think about, I know we'll get into it, but when I think about Sean McDermott and what he's been able to do with Josh, to me, Sean working with Ron and being the way they've been able to do this is like, Rivera got his first round quarterback. All right, now Sean's got his first round quarterback. Then he got his first round backer in Luke Kuechly. Now he's got his first round backer in Tremaine Edmonds, and then you have your coach. So to me, it's like this type of golden triangle type of thing. And I feel like it's almost another era of kind of what that hype of like Pillar was around that 2015. You get what I'm saying? Era when they went to the Super Bowl.
Based on the success we've seen this year from Josh Allen, one thing that the offense has done is they've been very pass heavy. In your opinion, do the Bills need to find more balance by the playoffs, or is this a recipe that could work going into January with Josh Allen throwing it and the running backs maybe getting 8-9 touches apiece?
Well, I mean, 14 weeks, it seemed to work for them right now. So, it's almost like if it ain't broke, don't, why change it? But I do think as far as the playoffs, I do think the run game is going to hold them back as well as their run defense at the same time. I mean, you look at these caliber teams, they're able, unfortunately, I want to say you look at the Chiefs, they're able to run it. They're able to throw the ball. And those are areas of concern that I'm actually pretty worried about for them when they want to make these deep runs in the playoffs. Because I had high hopes for Devin Singletary going into this season. Like, I was like, man, this dude's he's gonna kill it. Like, and then we're watching them maybe average 3 yards per carry. And I don't feel like those expectations have been met whatsoever. Zach Moss is a rookie, yes, but I just don't feel like we're getting much out of them. Yeah, you get spurts, but we don't get we've gotten one game that we've talked about them really being able to do a good job. And I'm kind of upset with the run game. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think if you look at, one of the biggest changes from last year to this year has been the emphasis put on the passing game. So I think like a natural adjustment period, it was to be expected. But I think to your point, it's like you're 12 games into the season now, finding that balance there, especially when you just take the last game, for instance, there was 2 or 3 runs there where that looked like the Devin Singletary that we saw a lot last season. It looked like he was explosive, even after the injury, the way that he made guys miss, cutting upfield, making a move, hitting a hole, and then darting upfield and making a play. And he did that a couple times the other night. You want to see more of that with a ball in his hands. But at the same time, I do kind of see, Ryan, I'll let you touch on this. It's tough to, and Devin's talked about this, tough to get in a rhythm when you're not getting the kind of looks that you're accustomed to. And with the way that this passing game is going, I just don't know if there's enough balls to go around.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair justification. And if you look last year when he came back from his injury, he was getting the workload. Frank Gore then moved to the back seat, and he was getting double-digit carries every single week because he was the main guy. And now, Frank Gore leaves, goes to the Jets. You bring in a rookie in Zach Moss, and it's a split timeshare. And that makes things really difficult because neither guy can get into a rhythm necessarily. You're going 1 or 2 series with one guy, then alternating back. So it's definitely hard to get into that rhythm. I did think Singletary flashed, though, like you guys said, against the 49ers. Even as a receiver, he caught one ball where he dodged or he eluded a tackler, and they ended up getting 8 or 9 on the play. So the flashes and the spurts are there, but we need to see a little bit more from them. But like Ashley said, how do you go away from the pass game with the success that we've seen over 14 weeks?
But it just Devin Singletary is a receiver because he's so small to me. It's just like, hey, that's gonna work just here and there. You definitely can't run that too much. But I hope to see in the last couple of games in the regular season at least him try and find a rhythm, because you do know it's hard to share the ball right now with the way that this offensive core looks. So it's almost like you have to find a way. You got to find a way to stand out. So you got to make every time you get the ball count.
Yeah,
indeed. All right, so this is the Buffalo Bills football podcast. If you're just joining us right now, Ashley Holder from Channel 2 is our guest. We're going to have Bruce Nolan from the Bruce Exclusive podcast later in the episode. And we're talking Bills. We're talking expectations, where the Bills sit here. And we're closing in on the playoffs here. I think Ryan, you're going to put up something on the site about this tomorrow. 538's current playoff odds for the Bills sit at about 96%, 91% chance to win the AFC East. So, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but it really is time to turn the page a little bit. And one question I want to dive into a little bit with you tonight here, Ashley, 12 games in and getting a good idea of what this team looks like and a couple pieces that have been missing. You think of John Brown, Matt Milano. Other than Josh Allen, who is like the player that I feel like if the Bills lose, it's the most irreplaceable player in your eyes? I think we all have some thoughts on this.
Right. Well, I mean, I gotta go with probably who you guys assume, Stephon Diggs. I mean, 1,000 yards so far on the season, and there's so many games left for them. Those deep balls, like the way that he gets set up and can set somebody, when he gets those a lot of the yardage, and then he can set up, Gabe Davis or Josh Allen or whoever it is for those touchdowns, speaks a lot of volumes. He's a playmaker. He's breaking ankles. Obviously, we saw that on Monday. I was like, yo, anybody check on Richard Sherman ankles? I mean, he's breaking so many ankles per game. It's crazy, and he's clearly a team guy. Obviously he's got such a bad rap, and I just feel like all around, he's a good player on and off the field. And, he just really changes the whole dynamic of this team, and he takes a really good team to like almost like a phenomenal team. But on the other side, I also would have to say, so I have two people, and I'd also have to say Micah Hyde. And I've heard from just from the leadership standpoint, I've heard players literally tell me that, this guy, the whole team respects this guy. Like, not just the defense, but the entire team. This is a guy that everyone looks up to. He's a vet, obviously, and I think that leadership goes a long way. And if they didn't have that defense could almost fall apart.
I was always struck by Micah's relationship with Steven Hauschka, because if you're in an NFL locker room, the dynamic between like special teams players or specialists, I feel like, and the regular defensive and offensive players, sometimes there could just be a divide there. And I felt like there was always this, from just my perception around the locker room, this inclusiveness to the way that Micah Hyde carried himself. And so to your point, that leadership, that attitude, I think that's something that, guys gravitate to. And I think those are both super great choices. Ryan, I want to hear yours, but I'm going to get mine in first, just in case you're going to take it. And I think you probably would have. Well, actually, before I do, who would you have picked?
Well, offense, I'm going to do the same thing as Ash. I'm going to pick an offense and a defense. Diggs has to be it on offense, just because he makes life so much easier for Gabriel Davis, for a healthy John Brown when he's out there, even for Cole Beasley. Defenses have to know where Stephon Diggs is at all times. So the defenses kind of wander over to that side, the star players, the best players. Defensively, I have to go with Trey White. I'm going with Trey White just because we saw what that defense did against Tennessee when he was not in that lineup. We saw what Josh Norman, what he would look like as cornerback number one against A.J. Brown, or what Levi Wallace has been doing as of late. They're both quality guys, quality people, but neither can be cornerback one for a team. And if you miss out on Trey White, that defense, all of a sudden it's wide open for teams to kind of throw all over the field, where Trey White takes away a certain part of that field every single snap.
Right. I think another point, sorry, not to cut you off, but with Stephon is like, at least he's making other people step their game up too, because at the beginning, Cole, even though he was like, oh, I'm not thinking about the outside noise, well, the ball's going to get around to everybody. Like, at the end of the day, as a competitor, you like, I want to make some plays too. I want to be out there. I want my name to be out there too. So I felt like it almost made guys like Cole and John, take their game up another level.
100%. And actually, that was who I was going to take was Tre'Davious White. But I'm also going to throw in another name that I think that sometimes because of the consistency kind of gets, I don't want to say undervalued, but forgotten about a little bit. And that's Jerry Hughes. And he's somebody that consistently week after week, I feel like he has to be accounted for by the opposing offensive coordinator. There has to be a plan for him. There's things that he does, nuanced things that he does from a week to week perspective that I think gets lost because if he doesn't record a sack or two and make a big splash play, you're not really seeing in the heat of the game, the action of the game, all the little things that he does. I went back and watched the game the other night today, and there was just a few plays, just little things where, Nick Mullins was just taken off of his spot. It's something that Leslie Frazier talks about all the time. Sometimes it's not about getting the sack. It's about getting the pressure and making the quarterback have to feel uncomfortable that makes them impact their decision or their throw. And Jerry Hughes does that so much so that you take it for granted and you don't even really think about it anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good one. And he's just like a good dude to talk to too. Like he gives great answers. So yeah, he really is.
He's really taken to the Zoom environment. I feel like sometimes in the locker room he could be a little bit, these guys are going through treatment and they just come off the field after practice. He's a veteran. He's been in this game a long time. There were some times I felt like he was just like, I don't want to talk today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because of the Zoom environment and that, he's allowed to kind of, pick when he's going to go, he's been phenomenal. I think that he's been one of the best interviews. And you brought up Stephon Diggs and his importance. Obviously, he's the guy on offense. I would have gone to him too. He's another guy that's been absolutely unbelievable on Zoom.
Yeah, he's been good. I think I would have to say my most entertaining so far has been Dion Dawkins for sure. He's a pretty entertaining guy, I've noticed.
He's a personality for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm learning the Schno thing. I've gotten that down.
There still isn't a really great explanation for the Schno thing.
Okay. So here's a funny thing. Half of my family is from Jersey. So I have 3 cousins that went to school with him, and they said that he's been doing that Schno thing since high school. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's something that he's always done. That he's like, you already Schno and all the other stuff. So I wouldn't have known that if they wouldn't have told me that. Like they said, he's been doing that well before Temple and stuff like that. So that's the best I got for you.
I like it, and he just comes up with off the wall stuff, like the whole macaroni and cheese thing last year. Like at first I heard that I was like,
wait, so what was it? See, I wasn't here, so.
Can you even remember that, Ryan? Like, I don't even remember like the specifics, but he was talking about how he's like good,
stirring it in the pot.
Yeah, just you got to stir the macaroni and cheese, and he was kind of going through the recipe things. I think was it Kraft that reached out to him and like they did a little thing with him, and it's just like, wait, what? Like that, my mind doesn't work like that. But that's what's so cool about Dion, and it's funny that you bring him up because I think he's the defensive version of Jerry Hughes, a guy that has reached a level of, if not all pro status, he's on the cusp, and he's just so consistent week in and week out. You go to Pro Football Focus, and I know, that's a whole other conversation, but every week he's one of the top, if not the top graded offensive linemen on the Bills team. And it's like, you just kind of take that, you put it in your pocket, you're going into Sunday or Monday with the fact that Dion's going to show up and be that guy for you every week. And that's a luxury in that league to have all of these players that give you that same level of play every week.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. What else did I want to talk about here with you? I got my little outline here. I always do these outlines. I always send them to Ryan before the show. And he's like, he'll either add something or say, I love it. And so if he adds something, I know he's kind of like, you brought it today. You didn't bring it 100%. I'm gonna bring it as well. But I always appreciate that feedback. Mm-hmm. Your career. I was looking on LinkedIn at your different stops. Mm-hmm. You've been all over the place. So you were in Oregon.
So I started in I started in Atlanta. That's where I started. I did radio out there first, and then I went to Missouri. Mm-hmm. Then I went to Oregon. Then I went to North Carolina, stayed there for a while, and then came here.
So you have just been all over this country. What was your favorite spot so far? I feel like you can even put Buffalo in this mix here now because you've been here for long enough to at least get a sense.
I'm scared because if I don't say Buffalo,
you put that pressure on her.
Yeah, like, but
it's okay. I love Las Vegas.
They know about me. They know about me. I'm a realist. Like, I've been having people come at me all week for these Pittsburgh Steelers. They're like, remember who you report for? Remember? Yeah, I'm like, first of all, I'm a journalist, so I can't even be biased. Technically,
right.
I can't be like, go Bills. So I don't think they understand that. But I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler fan through and through. I got my towels everywhere. I just decided, just to do the Tennessee thing today and not, show all my Pittsburgh stuff.
That would have been fun. Funny timing.
I know I was gonna do it though. I was scared. I'm not gonna lie. But I probably have to say, honestly, I have to say Charlotte. But what I will say is I really did enjoy Kansas City because I wasn't in Kansas City. I was in St. Joseph. Obviously, this is when I first started, so I was in a smaller market. But we covered everything in Kansas City. That was our main thing. And then the Royals won the World Series that year. And it's kind of funny because I knew nothing about baseball, nothing, and I had to learn it there because they went so far that year with Hosmer and everybody and won it. So that was I don't know if you've ever been there, but if you've ever been to Power and Light, and that's the big thing where they go for the Royals and the Chiefs, it's magnificent. Like, it's so much fun. It's kind of like the Epic Center in Charlotte. But I love Charlotte, man. Like, I got a lot of family out there, and my friends are out there. So it was just awesome, and I loved covering the Hornets. I'm an NBA girl through and through. Like, it kills me that there's no NBA team here, but I live for the NBA. So whenever the Toronto Raptors get it together and the border can get right, I'm definitely over there. Especially because my cousin just signed a 2-year deal with them too, so that's special for me. But I love Charlotte, man. It's just a lot of fun. It's like a little Atlanta. You know what I mean? It's just so much to do. Atlanta was great too, though. So.
Atlanta's too humid. Atlanta's too humid for me. Too much humidity down there.
It is really humid though.
It's hot.
Yeah, it's real humid. But I was with a guy for like, we'll get that. My boyfriend, but he's from Florida, and I learned like that humidity is something else though. Like, Atlanta's is bad, but that Florida stuff is completely
yes.
So,
I don't mess with Florida.
Yeah, and you know what? Just to be honest with you, just being a black girl at training camp with my hair, I have to worry about it curling up. Then I'm like trying to get my makeup on. I'm like, I despise training camp. Now, Spartanburg and Carolina heat, something different.
Yeah,
it's disgusting. It makes you feel nasty. Like, their heat is completely different. I don't know. Were you guys at the joint practice?
I was. Yeah, it was. It was terrible. Even under there was like a little tent area, and even under there was no getting away from it. It's misery everywhere.
You can't save yourself. And then the worst part is, like, when you're doing TV and you're trying to hold your mic and you're holding your camera, and you just feel like the sweat dropping down your back. It's terrible. Like, I literally can't stand being a one-man band at training camp. Training camp is literally my least favorite time of the year.
Oh, I love training camp. But now, Buffalo did not make the top of your list yet. However, I think in due time it may, because you have someone new living with you here. The star of the show that you held up before the show. Can you introduce us to your new dog here?
He's sleeping, but we got him up.
Aww.
He's just waking up. Clearly, you can see.
And how old again?
He's 10 weeks. Oh, he's so mad. Look at him.
What a sweetheart.
Oh, this is the love of my life, I tell you. Like, this is how you know this is my baby, because I carry him like this. He loves it. He just lives for it. He sleeps on his back like he has a real 9 to 5.
Look at him.
But yeah, he works like he has a 9 to 5. He doesn't do anything but sleep, poop, and eat. That's it. But literally, I love him, and I just had to pull the plug on it. I've been talking about getting a dog for so long, and I feel like because of the pandemic and the way we are at home, that this was the best time for me to just go ahead and get a dog. I can try and potty train. I can be home with the dog. So by the time I'm transitioning back, he'll be a little bit older. He'll be a little bit more used to it. So
that's awesome.
I literally drove 4 hours to go get him.
That's amazing. And where did somebody gave you the tip on where to go get him, right? Because I remember you put it out on social media. Like,
I did.
Where
well,
can I
wanted to rescue a dog, but I couldn't. There just wasn't places that really had them, and it was like more like pets or a lot older dogs and stuff like that. And then I went on a site that someone sent me. Actually, our weather person put me on it, and it was just kind of breeders everywhere. And I ended up seeing him, and then I just made contact, and now he's yawning in my arms. You know what I mean?
All dogs need a home.
Yeah, and they called me super late because someone who actually was already supposed to get him, and they didn't show up. And they were like, "Hey, if you're still interested," and they wanted me to come like literally that day. And I was like, "Well, if I'm coming that day, you have to either meet me halfway or you have to bring that like price completely down." And we'll just say I got a phenomenal deal that I was like, I cannot pass up. So literally before I went to practice, I drove all the way to Ohio, came all the way back, and left here at like probably 5 o'clock. So it was super late by the time I got back. Woke up, slept for a couple hours, woke up very early, went to PetSmart, got everything I needed, and somehow was dying when I went to camp the next day because like I could not leave him. I had just got him, so I was like, oh my god, what is this practice gonna be done? Like ready to go. Awesome. And we're only there for like 20 minutes. So yeah.
What kind of dog is it?
It's a Cockalier. So which is have just a regular Cocker Spaniel and a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. So yep. And I didn't realize that all these Spaniels were different. And he's like teething. He eats everything.
There's a question in here for you. Being a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, are you nervous about Sunday night?
So you want me
basically
to implying
that I almost feel like PJ's implying that you should be nervous about Sunday night.
I'm always nervous. I'm nervous because they lost to the Washington football team. That's why I'm nervous. So not saying that the Bills aren't good, but if you could turn around and I'm not trying to down them either, but that wasn't a game that I would have expected us to take a loss. I would have maybe put a game like this or something like that rather than them. So I feel like you can lose on any given day, and it's at home. The advantage is going towards Buffalo, and I'm always nervous though. But it's something about my guy Big Ben. Like I can't root against that dude ever. I don't know why. Claypool's just freaking killing it. TJ Watt, love that guy. Not that I'm saying I want them to do anything against Josh Allen. So please, like Bills Mafia, that's not what I'm saying. I just know that it's gonna make for a great game. And someone I won't even say who, but one player did frighten me when I put I put something like 9-0 or something there. Like really, and I was like, yeah, this has nothing to do with you guys. Like this is about me and my own personal. I don't understand. It was just so many people were coming for me. And when I was with Carolina, Ron Rivera, I have like my keychains have the Steeler lanyard. I didn't pay attention. I just throw them in my back pocket going to practice. It's like, hey, like, can't wear that keychain here anymore. I was like, what keychain? And I was like, oh, this keychain? He was like, yeah, just leave it in your car. And I was like, okay. So I never brought my keychain back. The people are very sensitive about these types of things.
Yeah, that's some serious business. Like I know I've even heard sometimes like cross sports. Like I remember somebody used to wear a Yankees hat in a press room. I don't know where I was, and they were told to stop wearing the Yankees hat. And I was like, man, that's way too serious for me. I mean, I get it. We're all here to do a job, but whatever, right. I guess.
And it's hard though, because it's like we're journalists, but we all have our favorite fans and favorite teams and everything like that. Like, luckily, I don't have a favorite NBA team. My favorite player is retired. So, I kind of get out of the mix. Besides that, I just pretty much support wherever my cousin goes at that point. But like Kevin Garnett's been gone. So like I was good. And I didn't want him to finish really with the Timberwolves because I was like, I can't be a Timberwolves fan.
There's two versions of Kevin Garnett. And I'm also a big NBA guy. And it killed me for 3 decades growing up in Buffalo and not having an NBA team. But there's two versions of Kevin Garnett. There's the Timberwolves version, which was awesome and who I really loved and respected. And then there was this other guy that went to Boston and just became this absolutely unbearable. I don't even know what he turned into. He was just like, it was just different. And maybe he was always that guy. And I just liked it because I just liked the vibe in Minnesota. And it's funny how sports can play tricks on you like that. Like somebody that I really can't stand is Draymond Green. But I feel like if he was on a team that I rooted for, I'd probably be down with him. So it's funny how that works.
Yeah, and I've met Kevin Garnett. Roz Gold on what is like one of my really close friends, and when she was at NBA TV, she took me there, and that's when I saw Area 21. And sorry, my dog's trying to jump over the suitcase that I have barricaded not to go over it. And I talked to him, and I was like, "Oh man, like this is my first time I ever telling anybody. I'm like, you're my favorite player, whatever." And he's like, "Don't like me." And I was like, "What?" He was like, I'm an a-hole or whatever. I was I was like, oh, okay. It just really made me love him even more. Like, so I mean, I literally think like who you're talking about, that's really who he is. Like,
Right.
pretty much every time I run him, he talks a lot of crap. Like, that's just him, man. Like, it is weird because he's like from South Carolina and stuff. Like, it throws me off sometimes. But yeah, he's kind of on the other side. But I get a lot of slack too because I'm a LeBron hater. I'm one of those people, so it's okay.
Oh, okay. And just like that, you're gone.
Yeah, I'm a LeBron hater.
Erased. Get out of here.
I like him as a person, but man, like, how many times can you travel and cry and then be like, oh, like, I don't know. We could talk about how many all-stars were on the Miami team if we really want to get into it, because people are trying to act like he carried that team. No, he didn't. He'll carry a team with all these all-stars people. Now people want to say Ray Allen wasn't an all-star. What are you talking about? Then let's not even talk about the NBA playoffs this year, okay? Let's not talk about the championship game. I'm not even counting the Lakers as real champs, okay? Sorry. It's not happening.
This could turn very bad. So we have to...
I'm Team Ashley here. MJ's better.
MJ's completely better.
100 times better, people.
Imagine LeBron.
All right, so what happened here is I have the controls in this podcast, and what I could do is I can mute Ryan and I can mute Ashley, and I could talk and tell you why LeBron James is so... No, I'm just kidding. I want to unmute them and bring them...
I'll tell you this. I had a podcast in Carolina, and it was me and another guy from Fox, and I had Trey Boston on it, and that was the only time that I've ever gotten a screaming match with a player, and we screamed our points of why I was Mike and he was LeBron. It was crazy. I mean, it was just yelling for 50 minutes.
Before we got to wrap up in the next 3 minutes, but I want to get to one more thing that I added late. You covered the Panthers while you were in Carolina, and one of the things that's grown, I feel like in lore over the last couple of years, is the Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane pipeline from Carolina to Buffalo. All these different players. I mean, you look at this defense right now: Josh Norman, Vernon Butler, Mario Addison, Daryl Worley was here before he was cut. There's all of these guys that they bring because they're familiar with them, and I'm just wondering from the Carolina perspective, was that ever something that, you know, people down there kind of recognized, and you think that is something that has helped them, you know, build the culture that they built here?
Yeah, it's funny because people in Carolina call this Panthers North, just because of how many people have came here, whether it's reporters or players or anything. I think two guys that to me that have stood out have really been like Darrell Williams, because he was very good, in my opinion, for Carolina on that O-line. And here he's just been able to be versatile. You know, he can play tackle, he can play guard. I think he's just a really great addition to this Bills offense, considering, you know, you see how much time Josh Allen has in the pocket, or he can decide if he's going to run, take a drink, or whatever he wants. I mean, he has unlimited amount of time. But another dude that really stood out to me was Mario Addison. You know, he was huge for Carolina. I think he had like 55 tackles at the time that he was there. Older guy, clearly still able to do it. And one thing that I know personally with that is he just said like how close that him and Beane were, as well as McDermott. But Beane, like, I've heard a lot of people from Carolina say Beane is my guy. Like, Beane is my guy. And you could tell that when Beane believes in someone or whatever, and even though he was at Carolina for quite some time, he doesn't like let go of those guys. So when he sees like this talent and he feels like that he can grab them, he's going to grab them. I know for a fact that's a big reason why Mario ended up here. You know what I mean? Like, there was other options he could have went to, but he said specifically he was here because of Beane and what Beane meant to him, and like how close he was, how much they've always kept in contact and stuff like that. And I just feel like you could tell like this relationship is not just like, oh, I like this guy and it's great. No, it's literally like they're close to Beane, and they're really close to Coach Sean McDermott, and they have that relationship. And that's why I feel like they've been able to get a lot of these good players that have came here, because it seems like for the most part, every player has been able to develop into something. I mean, I really won't count Worley into that. And I definitely won't count Kevin Benjamin, because that obviously didn't work at all. But besides,
what made that better is that you did call him Kevin Benjamin, because I feel like, no, I know, but I feel like that's, you could call him Kevin, Joe, Kelvin, it wouldn't really matter. I mean, everybody kind of erased him from the memory banks because Bills fans.
Crazy, man, because like, I don't know, I just felt like because he was so big, like I was like, oh, this dude can really take over. But
right,
it was almost like I saw a decline at Carolina, and then I don't even know if he went to Buffalo. I think he went somewhere else, then went to Buffalo, and then that just like,
it
And I was
ended
just
poorly
taking it.
for that guy. I will say though, he was another guy. I enjoyed talking to him in the locker room. That's a whole
Yeah,
other story.
he's a nice dude. But before that, like I was saying, it seems like the pipeline works for them. So even though it's like a lot of players they're bringing, it works for them though.
Let everybody know where they can find you on social media, because I think there's a lot of people that are going to want to make sure that they can follow along with your coverage.
Yeah, you can follow me on Ash Noel TV, ASHNOELLE TV on everything. Twitter, Facebook. Actually, no, that's Ashley Holder on Facebook. I lied. And Instagram. Yeah. So you know me, I'm trying to get my Buffalo stuff up on, so I can have my fans and talk to them, and I can be cool like y'all one day. But like I said, I just was blessed to be on a podcast with two goats. So.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, and we were the lucky ones indeed. Thank you so much, Ashley
took
Holder.
a little while to bring me on, but I'll let it slide.
No, I know you can hate on that a little bit, but I will say it's been such a weird year because in most years, like we probably would have already like spent much more time together, but in the COVID like era, like we really only had that small window where I feel like numbers were kind of improving and like people were at least able to go to like restaurants and stuff. We went out the one night, but no, you're awesome people, and this was fun, and we're gonna do it again.
Yes, thank you guys, I appreciate it.
All right, take care. Quick word from our sponsor, and we will be right back with Mr. Bruce Exclusive.
Ready for football? With every game a home game, Tops is ready for you with its TV a Day giveaway. For 6 weeks, every day you shop is a new chance to win a massive 70-inch 4K TV. Shop Tops for the best deals in town, in-store or online to win.
Look at this guy. The hair is combed so neatly. The tie is tied so nicely. Bruce Nolan, are you there?
I'm here, and I'm just loving the way this outfit looks on me, man. I mean, I'll level with you. I think it's slimming.
It is slimming. I know you've been working out, all off season long and into the season. It's work, man. You're looking fit as a fiddle.
I just need the clapper now to really get the whole thing to kind of work together. I need to turn off the studio lights with my hands, and then I'll really have completed the idea.
All right, so welcome to the show, Mr. Bruce Nolan, the host of the Bruce Exclusive podcast on the Buffalo Rumblings podcast network. My good friend, Ryan's good friend. Thank you for joining us, sir. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got a 9-3 football team here that, people are starting to talk Super Bowl a little bit. Does that freak you out at all?
It's unusual. I'm not used to having to deal with that question. So when you are headed into the season and you're tackling all of the possible probabilities, right? I'm a very organized guy. I like to plan for all the contingencies. At no point did I think I was going to have to tackle what do you think? The Bills are a Super Bowl contender? That hasn't happened to me in recent memory. So now the first time that it happened, the first time it came across my desk, I thought to myself, I'll level with you. I'm not entirely sure what to say to this. I'll tell you what, give me a minute. Let me process. I'll get back to you. That's kind of how this happened, because I hadn't initially considered it as being something I was going to have to tackle, so I wasn't prepared.
Well, understandable. Okay. Fair enough. Well, here is something for you to kind of digest. If the Bills are to be a Super Bowl contender, are they making a mistake going with Levi Wallace as cornerback 2 down the stretch?
I think that there can be an argument that is made that based on what we have seen in small sample size from Dane Jackson, he should be getting some more snaps. I think that Levi Wallace has an interesting position that he finds himself in. And the first is that being CB2 on this Buffalo defense naturally invites targets as it is, regardless of skill set. Just the position and the proximity to Tre'Davious White on the opposite side is going to invite targets your way. Then in addition to that, Levi Wallace has 2 significant flaws that have shown up throughout his career. The first is that he doesn't have the recovery speed, the basic athleticism, short area quickness, and recovery speed. He's a below average athlete for the position. And the second is that at the catch point, he doesn't have great skills at the catch point. And so when you put those 2 things together, you think, okay, so he has a tendency to struggle against size receivers, right? Devontae Parker, of course, comes immediately to mind from the Miami Dolphins. And then he struggles with long speed. And so because of that, you have limitations there. Well, I hate to break it to you, Dane Jackson isn't a markedly better athlete than Levi Wallace. Maybe a smidge better athlete, but Levi Wallace had an RAS score, relative athletic score, coming out in the 2s. Dane Jackson had it in the 4s. So you're still getting below average relative athleticism for the position. However, that being said, Dane Jackson has shown ability at the catch point. He has 2 pass breakups and an interception in 10 targets. Well, Levi Wallace has 2 pass breakups in like 44 targets. So it is markedly different at the catch point. Now, I will admit it's a small sample size. It's a really small sample size for Dane Jackson. So I don't think it's a slam dunk. I don't think it's an obvious, well, guys, Dane Jackson should be starting. But there's clearly an argument to be made that Dane Jackson should get more run. Because if you have 2 main flaws and you have a team that is capable of taking advantage to that, as long as they roll out a receiver of meaningful talent across from Levi Wallace, then if you have the ability to account for one of those flaws, which this being issues at the catch point, then it should at least be investigated. I think the conversation should be had. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say it's clearly a mistake, because Levi Wallace has been a preferred starter for this team on good defenses for years, and Dane Jackson's a rookie. So although we might be improving that one aspect of Levi Wallace's flaws, you never know. If you roll out Dane Jackson there for 60 snaps, you could be getting a lot of other issues that aren't just an improvement at the catch point. You could be getting a loss of all of the mental upside that Levi Wallace gives you, and that could be a reason why Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier and Butler keep rolling out Levi Wallace. So I don't necessarily think it's a slam dunk. Hey, it's absolutely a mistake. Dane Jackson be the starter. But there's clearly a logical argument to Dane Jackson getting some run.
So I go back to last season with Levi, and what we saw transpire as the season went on is that some of these problems started to creep up, and the Bills decided to go with a rotation at that spot. Kevin Johnson started to get more repetitions as the season went on. It kind of ebbed and flowed. I still think Levi Wallace, I would consider the starter there, even as he struggled. But that was something that was eye-opening to me, because you get a year and a half into a player's career and you want to start to see that trending line kind of at least maintain itself on its way up. And I felt like there's too much up and down with Levi Wallace. And so they go out and get Josh Norman. And that was the first thing that came to mind was, okay, this is their plan. This is let's push Levi in camp. We have a guy in Josh Norman, the way they've talked about Josh Norman all off season. It led me to believe that if and when healthy, he would be the guy. But we've seen now in 2 instances after Josh Norman got injured and came back, they still went with Levi Wallace. So I feel like Leslie Frazier said that this past Monday that they're not ruling out a rotation at any point. But to your point, I still feel like they have a level of confidence in Levi Wallace and want to see if, and this is another point that I think people lose sometimes with how they run their operation, is it's still about growth and development. So what we're seeing, or some of the setbacks that you're seeing a player go through, I think part of it is them wanting to see if that player that they've invested in can make it out of it. So I guess my question is there a scenario where you see Levi Wallace landing at a place where he can be a productive, trusted, every down cornerback opposite Tre'Davious White, knowing that because he's opposite Tre'Davious White, he is going to get the work, as Leslie Frazier said?
I don't think that Levi Wallace has the requisite physical skills to be a preferred upper level starter in the NFL. I think that the fact of the matter is that Levi Wallace has massively overachieved already as an undrafted free agent who was a walk-on at Alabama. He is someone who has turned in a productive career. He will probably play in this league for a long, long time, because that's the type of player we've seen. These players, these 4-6 corners who lack that long speed, Daryl Worley, Josh Norman, you've even seen flashes from players like this. But what you haven't seen is consistent long-term production that happens often from a player who lacks the ability to run as fast as the player who's across from him. That's just not something you see. You might see flashes. We saw an all-pro season from Josh Norman, and he ran a 4.66. So you can see moments of greatness from these players. But what you don't see often right? You might see it sometimes, but you don't see it often, is below average runners play at a high level in this league for a long time at a position where reactive athleticism is so important. One of the reasons why I've been pounding the table for dynamic athletes to play corner on this team, even though Sean McDermott consistently rolls out 4-6-6 guys who are scrappy and like to tackle. The reason why I've been pounding the table is because if you are a good athlete and you are across the field from another good athlete, and that good athlete knows where he's going and you don't, you're already behind. It's that simple. You have to be an even higher quality of athlete to be able to make up for the fact that the guy you are guarding knows where he's going and you don't. That requires an upper echelon athlete to be able to pull it off. And so when Levi Wallace came in, pleasantly surprised during his first year, his second year, I think we started to see that when there are occasions when you target Levi Wallace, a lot of times you can get production. And even if he breaks up one or two, if you keep targeting Levi Wallace, you will get production. We've seen it again, Miami Dolphins game earlier this year. We saw it last week. When you get 8, 9, 10 targets in Levi Wallace's direction, you are going to get production. And part of that comes from the fact that he just lacks the necessary physical tools. He's not a bad player. He's never a bad player. He's a limited player. And that's going to keep him from being what I would think would be a long-term preferred starter in the league.
Well, you know, use the term flashes of greatness. So let's transition to someone who's shown a lot of flashes of greatness this year, and that's Josh Allen. When Josh Allen came out, there was a narrative on him in terms of what kind of player he could be, what his ceiling may be due to his accuracy. What was did you have a narrative on him coming out, or what was your take on him when he first came out? And then has anything flipped on him for you like it has for some of these national media members that have obviously flipped on him this year over this course of this outstanding season that he's having?
My comp for Josh Allen coming out of college was John Skelton. I had a late day 2, early day 3 grade on him. So that's a swing and a miss. That's a pretty early swing and a miss. I think that the second Josh Allen reached competent level, I was already wrong on that take. So the only question now moving forward is not whether or not Bruce was wrong. Bruce was already wrong. The question is, to what degree was Bruce wrong? How badly did I miss? Because you had a project quarterback who was athletic and had a big arm and came from a smaller college and needed a lot of work. And a lot of times those quarterbacks don't pan out. Project quarterbacks are not commonly thought of as being somebody who can really end up being good. I mean, how many really significant project quarterbacks end up being great because they don't necessarily continue on the trajectory? Josh Allen did. And so very, very rarely do you have a quarterback who takes a jump from year 2 to year 3 the way that Josh Allen has. Now, one of the things that I speak of myself, did not put enough weight on with Josh Allen was limited reps. That's what we didn't do. Yes, he looks like this, but where is he on the scale right now? How early is he in his development? Yes, I understand he looks like this. I understand that he throws some passes and overstrides and sails them 50 yards over the head where they're not supposed to be. We get that. But where is he in the development? Is he like that now and it's a finished product? This is Josh Allen, finished product. Congratulations on your overstriding. Is it that simple? Or is he really, really early in his development? And what you're seeing is just a lump of clay and a guy who's willing to work. And so what I misjudged on Josh Allen, and what I think a lot of people misjudged, is that what we saw from him in college is not one singular data point that arrives at the end of his development. What we saw from Josh Allen instead is, yes, he looks like this, but he's a lot farther behind than you think he is. And that's where I got it wrong. The other thing I got wrong, specifically, a lot of people got wrong about his compadres, specifically Josh Rosen, is that your ability in this league to make plays off schedule and make throws off platform is going to continue to be valuable. This idea that you have these stationary statue pocket quarterbacks, it's not a thing anymore. These guys coming out, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, the people we're looking at Trevor Lawrence next year. You're looking at Justin Fields. You're looking at people who can make plays in the second phase of the play. after you've gone through your reads and nobody's open, or you've gotten pressure and you're forced to jumpstart the scramble drill, can you make a play? And Josh Allen can do that. That was not enough weight put on that because we're still stuck in the 1990s and the early 2000s when it comes to quarterbacks. And I think Josh Allen is going to force a lot of people to start valuing different things. Now, I'm not saying go look for the next Josh Allen, because Josh Allen's an anomaly. Don't go looking for the next Josh Allen. Josh Allen's a unique and special player, and we should be applauding that. But I got it wrong. And a lot of people got it wrong. I'm willing to take the L on it. The only question now is, how big is my L?
I have a different kind of L in the sense that I was like a fan, and I talked about this on the show recently when they drafted Josh Allen, and my wife can attest I was saying bad words at the TV because I had read so much on Josh Rosen. I mean, I wasn't as plugged in a different universe of plugged in where I was, when he was drafted. But one of the cool things that I had coming to the beat when I did to cover Josh and the Bills was just spending the amount of intimate time that I did in the MMA world and having one-on-one access to so many professional fighters, athletes, that I got a kind of a sense of their psyche and their dynamic and what goes into things. And, talking to young fighters that make their debut in the UFC, I probably never really used this example specifically, but the more I've thought about it, the more it makes a lot of sense. It's like their first fight in the UFC, there's so much happening. The bright lights, the bigger stage, more people, the speed and the of the events that happen. And so it takes some time, a couple of fights for the game, for the sequences to slow down. And I think some of the things where Josh Allen was struggling the most as a rookie was the little things. I mean, you go back to training camp and when he sailed the ball over who was the running back, LaShawn McCoy's head by like 5 yards. And everybody is sharing that video out and people are laughing and people are making jokes. And I'm kind of sitting here and thinking that's a really fixable thing, because once the reps come, the live bullets, as Brian Dable always likes to say, that's something that through repetition, that's something that you can learn and fix. And I think what we've seen is every area of his game that, the mechanical stuff has been something that you can fix with enough time. And going from Wyoming to the NFL, I think we should have, to your point, always have known that there was going to be a delay in terms of just where he's at now compared to where he was at as a rookie.
I'd agree with that. We should have known. Joe Marino, Draft Network, Locked On Bills, famously said that he, talked to some people who thought that Josh Allen was 10,000 reps behind Baker Mayfield, 10,000 individual reps behind Baker Mayfield. So where you are is important. Where you're going is more important. And I think that's the part where myself and a lot of people just missed.
Yeah, and right now I think it's fair to say that we haven't even scratched the surface on his ceiling because of where he's still going. The fact that he was so far behind the Baker Mayfields, the Sam Darnolds in those reps, and we've already kind of seen him, lap Sam Darnold, unfortunately, because Darnold has not had the proper kind of coaching talent around him. And I personally feel like he's past Baker Mayfield at this point. So it's interesting to see, and if you remember the Bills Mafia, it has to be exciting to see the evolution of Josh Allen to this point, and the fact that the best is probably still yet to come.
Let's transition here, because this is one talking point that I wanted to hit into, because I saw it mentioned, maybe on a message board or a comment on an article somewhere, I can't remember, but it's something that you have to consider this week. It's going to be interesting to get out at practice and see the kind of combinations. One of the things that we talked about on the show a couple days ago was I saw Ike Bucker at practice last week. I couldn't really report it because we're not allowed to report what we're seeing for game planning purposes. That rule is still kind of intact with who lines up where, and it's just a gray area that we just don't get into. And so I feel like this regime has really shown that they're willing to make adjustments. Maybe it's not as fast as fans sometimes want, but they will make an adjustment. I mean, we saw Brian Winters for 9 weeks struggling. I mean, I'm no film expert. I watched football my whole life, and I could tell you without a shadow of doubt from watching live and watching on replay, Brian Winters was the worst offensive lineman of the 5 consistently. And so that was just something I thought. They noticed it. They made a change. Ike Bucker. Zach Moss, 2 fumbles Only one technically, because that was the one that lost. The other one was caused by the ground. But they're eye-opening plays because you start to remember who Zach Moss is in terms of just being a rookie. And those kinds of mistakes can really snake bite you as you're going through this season. Have a lot of big games. This Pittsburgh game is huge. Once you get into the playoffs, and Sean McDermott didn't mince words. He was like, you didn't see him because he had to learn a hard lesson that those kinds of mistakes will not be tolerated. I'm paraphrasing. So is there a possibility that maybe because of that fumble in a big spot like that at the goal line, they maybe move to TJ Yeldon in that backup role?
They said going into the draft, when there was a lot of talk about potentially them drafting a running back on day 2 or day 3, they said going into the draft that they had a lot of faith in TJ Yeldon. They openly said that. Now, we all assumed after the draft that the reason why they said that was because it was a smokescreen and they wanted to take Zach Moss, especially after word came out that they attempted to trade up for Zach Moss. And they recognized how much they liked Zach Moss. But that doesn't mean they don't have trust in him. I always thought it was really weird that they signed TJ Yeldon to a 2-year deal last year. I always thought that was strange because typically you don't see running backs like that being signed to 2-year deals at that stage in the offseason. It's unusual. Usually that's 1 year, that minimum range. And I always thought that was kind of interesting, and they were kind of hedging themselves against the idea that if they didn't have a running back they really liked in this draft, that they would still have a carryover year from TJ Yeldon. It's clear that they trust him, and he's performed okay. Now, I will say that we've seen scenarios like this where it happens and then someone makes a mistake and they take the bench for a little bit. But Zach Moss was out on the field later that game. And that's the thing that makes me think they're not going to do it. The thing that makes me think they're not going to do it is I think if they were going to, we would have not seen him at all. And I think the question was, okay, you're going to sit down. We're going to talk about it. You're going to recognize that you got to learn a hard lesson. And we're going to let you take one more carry here later on down the line. And I think that ability to insert him back into the lineup later on, like they did, that would make me lean toward they're not going to make a change right now. Now, I'm not saying if he doesn't fumble the ball again, they wouldn't make the change, because they've pretty much shown that they're willing to do things like that for mistakes. But they inserted Zach Moss as the 1A/1B to Devin Singletary. And even when he wasn't necessarily fumbling the ball, but he wasn't showing great vision earlier in the year, he struggled with a toe injury, wasn't quite as explosive as you like to see, they stuck with him. So with that, and with the fact that he was back in the lineup after his fumble, albeit much later in the game, they let him carry the ball again. Those two things combined make me think they're not going to make the switch. But if they did, I wouldn't feel bad about it. TJ Yeldon has performed at a reasonable level.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's stay on the offensive side of the ball. Is the passing offense that we saw against the 49ers sustainable without John Brown in the lineup?
I think it's sustainable as long as Josh Allen continues to play the way he did against zone, and Brian Dable continues to call the route concepts he did against zone. It was really interesting because the narrative for Josh Allen kind of in the middle section of this season was, okay, they're defending him a new way. There's a new book on Josh Allen. Coming into this year, after last year, it was, okay, we're going to play man, bring pressure. You're going to see cover 0. You're going to see cover 1. Can you beat it? And then the Bills go out and acquire one of the best man separators in the game in Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen gets another year of comfort, and he comes out the first 4 weeks and absolutely lights people up like a Christmas tree. Merry Christmas. And he lights them up like a Christmas tree, and then there's a new book on Josh Allen. And that's what being a franchise quarterback is. Franchise quarterback is eventually overcoming book after book after book until eventually there's no book on you. Because if there is one thing that a defense can do, and that one thing is going to shut you down, then you're not a franchise quarterback. Like if there's one thing that, oh, guys, as long as we do this thing, he's not going to be effective, then you're not a franchise guy.
Here's one thing that I noticed didn't happen, though, in the San Francisco game, and you watched the tape, so you could probably correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't notice them getting significant pressure with their front, their front four. And I feel like this week with TJ Watt, that's going to change, because I feel like he's going to probably be matched up most of the game with Darrell Williams, who's been really good in pass protection. So you like that matchup, but he's still TJ Watt. And I think that that's where, you go back to the Kansas City game, and where I thought The real problem came from the interior and Chris Jones, because he's a beast and one of the best in the game to do what he does. But I think you add another guy into the mix like a TJ Watt, and that's where I have questions.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And when we've seen Josh Allen get pressure, he got quick pressure a couple times against San Francisco. He likes to roll to his right. We've seen that before. So when you have to jumpstart the scramble drill against zone, can you do it effectively? And so I think the answer to the original question is it sustainable without smoke? I think the answer is yes, if Josh Allen continues on his trajectory. Because what John Brown serves as a purpose for Josh Allen is he's a nice security blanket. Josh Allen said when John Brown got around this team last year that he had never had a person who runs routes as professionally as John Brown. Like, this is a guy who Josh Allen just trusts. And in the absence of that security blanket, now don't get me wrong, Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley are a very nice security blanket, consolation prize. Thank you very much. But ideally, I'd like to have 3 rather than 2. And Gabriel Davis is not at the section in his environment and his development where you consider him a go-to security blanket. That's just not where he is yet as a player. He's been great as a wide receiver 4. He's been performing above expectations, but in absence of that third security blanket, in absence of that guy that Josh Allen has chemistry with, what you'll need to see in order to sustain it is continued development from Josh Allen against zone and against pressure. Look at Arizona. Arizona was able to get free rushers through zone pressures, and they played a lot of stuff on the back end that made Josh Allen confused on the protections, and they got free rushers. So they bring 4, but it wasn't the same 4 that they thought it was. And because of that, Josh Allen had to kind of accelerate his time. He didn't look quite as good against Arizona. If we continue on the development, then we can sustain it. If we can't, then the absence of Brown is going to start to be noticeable.
I was just listening. I was having the full Bruce experience. If you are confused by this beautiful picture on the screen below, this is the Bruce exclusive podcast host, Bruce Nolan, that is joining us right now from Buffalo Rumblings. Go find the Bruce exclusive. All the BR podcasts are awesome. Our guy Anthony Marino is over there. Steve Vega, the Buff Hub, so many. What's Robin's podcast?
The Mafia Mavens.
Mafia Mavens. They had a great episode recently with Brandon Bean's wife, Haley. Go check that out. They do so many great things. Before we get out of here, Bruce, there's one more topic I wanted to bring up. And, you look across this defense. We were kind of covering it with Ashley a little bit in terms of, who is the most irreplaceable player. But I want to ask you, which single defensive player has impressed you the most through 12 games? It could be anybody and for any reason.
I think that the player who has impressed me the most from this defense in the last 12 games is Jerry Hughes. And the reason why I say Jerry Hughes is because every year I think this is the year that Jerry Hughes maybe is not as productive. Maybe he's not as explosive. And last year had kind of a down year. And then we found out he was dealing with a ton of injuries during the season. And he comes back and you're like, okay, well, maybe this isn't the year. Maybe last year wasn't the year where Jerry Hughes kind of sort of tails off. Maybe it was just because he was hurt and then he gets right. And then this year, ignore the sack numbers, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a terrible way of evaluating Jerry Hughes's play. Turn on the film, watch him. He's very, very good. And he's consistently been good. And the thing that Jerry Hughes kind of gets slept on is because he doesn't have those 12 sack seasons that you think of. But Jerry Hughes is approaching Wall of Fame level of play for how long he's been here. He's going to be viewed as being a long-term member of a really good Bills team. And he was a big part of the 2017 team. He was a big part of the cold front back when this, defensive line was unbelievable. Mario Williams and Marcel Darius and Kyle Williams and Jerry Hughes. He was the beginning of the idea that, hey, this is a good defensive line. And then pieces started falling off around him, and he's continually played well. Jerry Hughes is going to be looked at as a player who was a meaningful player on this team for a long time. And I understand that seems a little hyperbolic when I say it. And, I get people in the comments going, whoa, Bruce, what you talking about there? But I mean, just look at the all-time sack leaders and he slowly starts growing the list. I mean, is there a realistic chance that Jerry Hughes is looked at in the Phil Hansen level of fondness when his career is over? And I think that that's probably a possibility. And if that's the case, you have to look at him as a great Bill. And so when I think about players who've impressed me, it's Jerry Hughes. And it's because every year I think this is the year. This is the year where Jerry Hughes is going to fall off, and it just keeps not happening. So as far as I'm concerned, keep signing the boy to 1-year extensions until he qualifies for AARP.
He is on pace for 62 pressures this year, which would be the second highest pressure total of his career, behind 2018, which was his best year. I mean, PFF gave him a 90.4 grade that year. I remember, I think his pass rush win rate was in the top 5. He was absolutely phenomenal that year. You look at that's one year where the sack number doesn't even begin to tell the story on how good Jerry Hughes was for that 2018 Bills defense. But to your point, you just see the impact that he has on everybody else around him. I mean, you talk about an interior defense that struggled to find its identity after Star Lotulelei was gone. And talk about such a luxury to have a guy like Jerry Hughes that you could kind of rely on to always do his job and to also confuse offensive lines. I mean, they do some, you'd be able to talk to this more than I would, Bruce, but like some of the stunt works that they do. I mean, just one last game, it didn't involve Hughes, but I think it was Milano, who it was a third down play and he got through. I think he stunted into the inside with a nice move and came in and just got on Nick Mullins and he made a bad throw. And they do a lot of that. And Jerry Hughes is usually involved in some way. So to your point, I think you're spot on. Ryan, defensive player that's impressed you the most so far this year?
Jordan Poyer. I think Poyer's been solid since year one, but I really think he's taken his game to another level this year. I'm not going to sit here and say, and I'm not going to say he's been the better safety than Micah Hyde because that's been unbelievable as well, but I feel like his growth from this year, he's taken a bigger leap in his play. Hyde has always been, since he's joined the Bills, that elite safety status. And Poyer was always really good. He was like, man, I can't believe we got him at the deal that we did. But I thought, I feel like this year he's taken his game to another level. Obviously that back end's pretty good with Trey White, with Micah Hyde, and with Poyer. But I just feel like he's having his best season as a member of the Bills.
Oh, we got a little that means we're done, because when I started hearing the sounds in the background, like I do my best to kind of, I've learned now with this new podcast studio, I got to turn the heat off. That takes care of that. Then we got the hot water tank right here. You should just see everything that's around me. You think it's like this cool little nook, like a fun little studio. It's in the middle of just chaos, and it can just get chaotic at any moment. So Mr. Bruce Nolan, thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. We could do this all night. We're gonna have you back on soon. I got the template built for you, so we can have you jump on here anytime. I'm also thinking, speaking of the Buffalo Rumblings, I might hit up Anthony Marino. I can't believe we haven't had him on this podcast yet. I think we got to rectify that for next Wednesday night. We'll see if we can get him on the show. But Bruce, let everybody know where they can find you, what you got coming this week. I know Thursday and Friday is the usual podcast days. What do we got coming?
I actually just finished recording, editing, and uploading my Thursday podcast before I hopped on here. So tomorrow you can see and hear, not see, because obviously, there's a template using somebody else's face instead of mine. I actually don't look anything like Jim Carrey. So that's definitely a disappointment for anyone who's actually ever met me in person. But my hair is not nearly that good.
Which I have. We crushed some botchies last summer.
We did. We crushed it.
We crushed it. And I will say, Bruce Nolan, better experience. Visually.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Bruce Exclusive. My podcast, The Bruce Exclusive, drops every Thursday and Friday on the Buffalo Rumblings Podcast Network. Thank you guys so much for having me. It is a pleasure. I am truly blessed, and I really appreciate you guys letting me be a part of it.
Oh, anytime. We'll do this again real soon. Quick question before we let you go and we end tonight. So is there a situation, like I've seen a lot of thrillers, like a lot of thriller movies, like when the FBI closes in and gets too close for comfort, do you guys relocate, or what do you have to do to keep them off your tracks?
So funny story. Since the last time you saw me, what I do is every time I'm seen in public by someone, I completely change the way I look. So since the last time you saw me, I have different facial hair. I have different hair. I've lost weight. There's other stuff going on. So you wouldn't even recognize me. And that's how I stay one step ahead. I stay one step ahead by recognizing that I've been got, and I've got to do the entire different. I mean, it's like gaining or losing weight for a part. I'm really committed to it. So the next time you see me, I might just decide to randomly put on 40 pounds just so that, I got to stay one step ahead. You got to do what you got to do, man. Get a new car, do what you got to do.
Well, I think you got to change your identity a little bit, or your public official online identity, to like Christian Bale, because he's had so many different roles over his career. We got a bunch of pictures depending on how much weight you lose or gain. We can make templates for days. But Bruce
Nolan, method actor. Yeah, it works.
There you go. My man, thank you so much. This was a great time. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. That was Bruce Nolan from Buffalo Rumblings. Go follow him. He's awesome. Good friend of the show. And Ryan Talbot, final thought. Hit us with it.
Final thought. Big game. Bills can clinch a playoff spot for the second year in a row by defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this year, along the way, I'll have an article out on it in the morning with all the scenarios, how likely each scenario is. But the Bills, for the second straight berth with a win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Keep your eyes peeled on that game. But it all starts actually tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football with the overall playoff scenario.
For sure. That's been a fun one to watch. All right. For Ryan Talbot, I'm Matt Parrino. Do us a great favor. Go to your audio platform. We're so grateful that you guys watch us, this live show. It's interactive. It's fun. The comments are great. We love it. But take that extra step. Go find us on Google, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, all of the podcast platforms, wherever you get yours. Subscribe. That does us a great service. Leave a rating and review if you're feeling a little bit, extra in the Christmas spirit. And we get this thing popping, get it continue to grow. It's grown so much, and it's been awesome, and we're very grateful. Syracuse.com, NewYorkUpstate.com. Get over there all week. We got a bunch of content from the fallout from the 49ers game. We're going to start to transition into the week here. Tomorrow, the Bills practice at One Bills Drive. Today was a walkthrough. Tomorrow is a full practice. I will be there, and I will have coverage from that. We will see you on Friday night. We might have a guest. Ryan, to preview the Steelers games. Three shows in 5 days. We are bringing it this week on the Shout Football Podcast. Have a great one, everyone.
Ready for football? Tops is with ready-to-serve fan favorites everyone will cheer for. Delicious family or party packs like pizza, sliders, fried chicken, barbecue, or beef on weck. Starting at only $4 per serving. Perfect for game day